Hello everyone, welcome back to Formulating with Jada Raquel. Today I'm going to be experimenting with a facial moisturizer to be used in cold, dry climates, and that also targets hyperpigmentation. I was going for a product that wasn't so heavy that it clogged pores and felt like heavy greasiness on your face, but I also wanted it to not be so light that it didn't feel like it was moisturizing at all. Here's our formula for today put in percentages. I personally made a 400-gram sample so that I had a jar for me, my boyfriend, and my stepdad. Alright, so we're going to start off with our water phase, mixing together all of our water-soluble ingredients. In this formula, I'm not going to use aloe vera juice. I'm going to use aloe vera juice powder at 200x. So when I mix the powder with the water, instead of it including water and aloe vera juice, it will just turn the water itself into aloe vera juice. So this moisturizer is completely based in aloe vera. Next up is our DL-panthenol, which is also known as provitamin B5. The human body readily absorbs DL-panthenol through the skin, and it rapidly converts DL-panthenol to pantothenic acid, which is also known as vitamin B5. And this is a natural constituent of healthy hair and a substance that is present in all living cells. This ingredient gives the skin improved hydration, it reduces the skin's water loss, and it maintains your skin's elasticity and softness. I really love this ingredient. It's natural and I use it in almost everything, so you'll see it often on this channel. Next up is our niacinamide, which is vitamin B3 powder. Niacinamide has been shown to stimulate collagen synthesis and the production of ceramide, which is really an oily compound that contributes to the functional and structural integrity of your skin barrier. So by improving your skin barrier integrity, the niacinamide will help your skin become more resistant to external irritants. Now we are going to incorporate our organic agave prebiotic. This powder essentially supports the skin microbiome as well. It boosts moisture, it helps to treat acne, it helps to reduce inflammation, and it helps to repair skin damaged by the sun and delays signs of aging. Alright, next up is our Sea Kelp Bioferment. It is a natural film former and acts as a really great oil-free moisturizer. Believe it or not, you can actually just use this full strength straight out of the jar, but I like to play around with it in my formulation, so I don't personally do that. Alright, so our water phase is almost done. I'm just going to stir it and put it under my electric overhead mixer because there's so many powders in the water phase. You can see here that I immediately spilled the water phase a little bit, so I know that it would have messed up my calculations just a bit, but this is experimental, so I didn't really care that much about it. However, I'm going to keep this part under the electric mixer while I slurry together my xanthan gum and propanediol so that all the particles have plenty of time to dissolve while I'm mixing that before I go in and thicken the water phase. Alright, so I'm going to start off our slurry with the propanediol. This is essentially a humectant, just like glycerin is. I prefer to use propanediol whenever I make face products because it is less tacky and sticky than glycerin is. The reason why I am doing this part separate from the rest of the water phase is because I'm going to be using a rheology modifier, which is the xanthan gum, and it's essentially used to thicken the product and help with stability. The xanthan gum, however, can be hard to dissolve when you just dump it straight into the water phase, so it helps when you hydrate it first with a propanediol or a glycerin, and then once you slurry it, dump it into the water phase, and then it'll thicken and do its thing there. Alright, now it's time for our oil phase. We're going to start off with Montanov L, which is going to be one of our emulsifiers. This one is a non-ionic emulsifier. And Montanov L specifically actually creates a bilayered structure, which essentially mimics your skin barrier or your stratum corneum. This structure may help actives or lipids from your moisturizers to penetrate your skin easier. Montanov L is 100% from vegetable origin. And the lotions that you make with Montanov L are usually ultra soft with light textures. I wanted this moisturizer to be thick enough that you felt moisturized throughout the day in these dry, cold months, but light enough that you don't feel smothered. The other emulsifier I'm going to be using is Emulsion SG. This is just an anionic emulsifier, and I'm really including it in here for the purposes of stability. While it functions in the stability of the formula primarily, Emulsion SG is actually also suitable for people with sensitive skin or allergies because it creates what's known as lamellar gels, which are low in skin irritation potential. This emulsifier is also an all-natural emulsifier. Now we have our Caprylic Capric Triglycerides, which is going to be one of our moisturizers in this formula. It's all natural and it's derived from coconuts. It's very common to see in skincare products, and it's essentially just an extremely lightweight moisturizer. It's so lightweight that you can spray it out of a spray pump. So a lot of body oils are based in Caprylic Capric Triglycerides. I also chose this because, like I said before, I didn't want this moisturizer to feel heavy on the skin. So I wanted it to be moisturizing, but I didn't want it to be greasy and heavy. Another moisturizer I'm going to use is keratin-infused sunflower oil. Sunflower oil is another really moisturizing but lightweight oil, so it fits into my desire to keep this a non-heavy facial moisturizer. However, this sunflower oil is also infused with keratin, which is vitamin A. And when that's applied on the skin, it converts into an active form of retinol. So you can think of keratin as like a natural form of retinol, and it's derived from carrots. The retinol that it converts to has been shown to boost collagen production, and also increase cell turnover, as well as fade hyperpigmentation. So essentially it's going to even out your skin tone. So all in all, this ingredient is going to help rebuild and moisturize the skin, as well as act as an antioxidant. The other oil I'm going to be using is golden jojoba oil. I love it because it's structurally and chemically extremely similar to your natural sebum that's produced by your body. It's also an oil that is non-comedogenic, which means it will not clog your pores. It's also an oil that doesn't really leave you feeling greasy after use. Alright, that is it for our oil phase. I know that it looks just a little bit funky now, but this is actually my favorite part. So now we're just going to put the water phase and the oil phase on the heating pad and heat them to 75 degrees Celsius. While those are heating up, I'm just going to go ahead and get my phase D together, also known as our temperature sensitive ingredients. The first one of which is cosmoperine, which is an active from black peppercorns. This ingredient acts as a penetration enhancer and helps the bioavailability of nutrients, vitamins, minerals, etc. So when I have all of these nutrients that I'm adding in the formula, as well as the active that I'm going to put in after this cosmoperine will help my skin to drink it up, essentially. Now I'm going to measure out my active called Bryolite, which is an ingredient that has actually been obtained from a marine microorganism. This active acts on various stages of melanin production and deposition in the skin, and it helps to control pigmentation. And since it helps to control melanin production, which is your inherent UV protector, this active actually also induces the expression of genes that you have that are involved in DNA repair. So while it's helping to control your melanin production, it's also helping you to produce more UV protection outside of the pigment. The preservative I'm going to be using is phenoxyethanol, mostly because I had it from a different project and I ran out of the preservative that I normally like to use, but this one is still fine for these purposes. This preservative is a biocide, which is most active against gram-negative bacteria. However, it's generally used in combination with other preservatives, partly because its activity is weak against yeast and mold. The last ingredient we're going to worry about is the fragrance oil. I'm using one that is called Barber Shop. I got it from wholesalesupplyesplus.com. It's a masculine fresh scent. I've had the men in my family smell it and they like it, and this is kind of my first time putting it in an actual product because I didn't know before what I would like it as. But I do like it, and I recommend it for anyone who wants to try skincare for men. Alright, so now Both of our phases are melted down. I'm just giving a little stir to make sure there's no more pellets and things like that. I'm going to use my thermometer to make sure it's at the right temperature so that the water phase and oil phase combine in the right way. And then we will move on to the next part. Alright, so now it's time to pour the water phase into the oil phase to make our emulsion. I actually noticed right before I did this that I either should have been stirring the water phase as it was heating, or maybe it got heated up too much, because just on the bottom there's just some that got stuck, so you'll kind of see like a black speck fall in there. It's part of the water phase that got too hot. I was able to get it out later on, but it didn't mess up the rest of the formula at all. I was just careful to not pour in the part of the water phase that got stuck to the bottom of my beaker. Alright, so it looks like it combined fine. I'm just going to turn up the speed on the overhead mixer. Make sure it's really getting a nice stir there. And then I'm going to continue stirring it while I let this mixture cool down to 40 degrees Celsius or below before I add in my temperature sensitive ingredients. Alright, now we're going to add in phase D, starting with the Cosmopairing powder. This active, I ended up putting it in at the end because it is temperature sensitive, but normally if I didn't need to heat it up, it can also go ahead and dissolve in the water phase as well. Now I'm going to also add the liquid components of phase D, the active, the preservative, and the fragrance oil. Give that a nice little stir, and then we will be ready to put it in the jars after I check the pH. Before I do that, however, I did want to try to show you guys kind of what the texture is like at this point. Normally when you make emulsions, it is like looser and more liquidy immediately after you make it, and then normally you'll like cover it and let it sit for 24 hours to see the final thickness of the product itself. This came out to be thinner than what I was going for, but I also wasn't mad at it because it's going on my face, and I really do not like thick products to go on my face. I went ahead and checked the pH. It was naturally in the perfect range. I didn't have to do anything to adjust it. And then from here, I would just went ahead and put it in the jars and tested it out on myself. So I made a 400-gram sample today, which was enough to perfectly fill up 3 jars. One for me, one for my boyfriend, and one for my dad. I feel like this product was definitely a success. I tried it out on my arm and my hand, and while it was definitely emollient and I could definitely feel the oils and stuff in it, it was definitely not greasy. It was really fast absorbing, and so I decided to also try it on my face. And it also didn't feel too heavy. It felt very moisturizing, and I felt like I was in good shape throughout the whole rest of the day, so this was definitely a win. That's all for today. Comment below to give me more ideas.